you got to take the bull by the horns, and you got to take control of your own professional development.
Hey, what's up, everybody? And welcome to Masters in Fitness Business Podcast, where you get to stand on the shoulders of giants. And today I'm bringing you a giant from down under, Justin Tamsett. He is based in Sydney, Australia, but this guy's been in the fitness industry since 1989. He's got me by a year. And he's been running his business, Active Management, for 22 years. He just finished entering his 22nd year in business. And this guy speaks all around the world. He's an international speaker. He's involved with Rex Roundtables and several other industry leaders. So, Justin, welcome to the show, man. I'm glad to have you.
Good evening, good morning, good whatever day it is. Jim, how are you?
I'm good. I think we have a little bit of a delay because there's several thousand miles between us. But can you still hear me okay?
Yep, I've got you loud and clear. How about
okay, awesome.
Back the other way?
Awesome. So I'm glad you reached out, and we were talking before we started recording because I always am interested in backstories and people's motivation, what gets them into this industry, what keeps them in this industry, and as well as what makes them thrive. But you started out in 1989 getting paid like $8 an hour to be on the gym floor to basically talk to gym members. Is that correct?
I would like to think I was talking to gym members and creating experiences for people on the gym floor before they knew what experiences were.
There you go. You were a customer experience specialist. And then, so how did you?
It was it was interesting in those days when you joined a gym. Part of the sales process was that you always got a program, and so my job was to do a fitness test for everybody and then write a program for them, and then they were supposed to come back every 6 to 8 weeks and have a program upgrade. There was no system inside the business to ensure that happened, but that was what was supposed to happen.
Gotcha. And then I always think it's really important to understand where you cut your teeth, where you learn the skills that you get paid big bucks to do today, because most people will see you as an overnight success, and I see you as a 22-year overnight success. So I think it's important to realize that, walking around the gym floor and enhancing people's customer experience, helping them with their program, that's where you develop those skills that have taken you where you are today, correct?
Yeah, 100%. And I guess a little insight, and a magician should never, ever disclose how they do their tricks, but I will for you and your listeners today. I got to be honest, when I first started in the fitness industry, and even probably for the first 6 to 7 years that I was working in the fitness industry, I wasn't sure if this is what I actually wanted to do. Like, I didn't really get what the industry was about. And this is in the early 90s. So the skill that I developed, in all honesty, was going up to people and talking to them about them and about their job, because I wanted to know what they did for a living in case that was something that I wanted to do for a living, because I had no idea what my career aspirations were. So I figured, working in a gym, how good is this? I meet so many people doing so many different jobs. And I guess the skill that I learned was kind of that natural curiosity, and then the ability to listen and ask more questions to get clarity, which was giving me vocational guidance. And that's kind of, I guess, how I cut my teeth and ended up where I am now, because I now have this skill set. I'd like to think of being able to listen really well.
Yeah, and I think that is a valuable skill. that you have to develop of listening, being able to listen, because that's what makes people feel comfortable. That's what makes people feel safe, where they can lower their guard and start to build trust with you and build a relationship with you and do business with you.
100%. You're spot on. Without trust, there is no, look, the reality is people actually don't buy the product, they buy the person. And if they're going to buy the person, they've got to trust the person. And if they don't trust the person, then you actually got to sell the product. And when you have to sell the product, buyer's remorse kicks in and there's no actual relationship. The person hasn't owned that buying decision. So trust, as you said, is so critical. And the easiest way to build trust is just to listen to what the person has to talk about them, and you learn about them.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Because I think most people want to interject and get to the sale, or they want to relate in some way. And so they wind up telling a story or talking about themselves instead of listening to the other people. And I describe it as conversations. You want to have one conversation at a time. If you're talking to a client or potential client, you want to have one conversation about them, not a conversation about them along with a conversation about you. But so how did you go from there to where you are today, 22 years in the fitness business with active management, speaking all over the world, kind of the short form of that story?
Well, I progressed from being that gym instructor to moving into sales, then club management, and then I actually owned a club, and then owned two clubs, and then sold one club, and then sold the other club about 11 years ago now. And I'll cover kind of, I guess, during our conversation why I might have sold those clubs. And really, it was a natural progression. I went to university to be a phys ed teacher, and really what I really enjoyed was teaching. And as a personal trainer, I was teaching. As a salesperson, I was kind of teaching. As a club manager or club owner, I was kind of teaching as well. But I missed that teaching thing. And so I started to speak at conferences, and then the progression from there was that teaching model for me changed to being able to go in and work with clubs or individuals and teach them perhaps how to do their business better. And then as I've progressed over the last 22 years, I would like to think I've refined my art of teaching. I certainly still have a long way to go to be a great coach or a consultant, but I'd like to think I've certainly got better at it with lots more practice.
Yeah. Well, 22 years in business speaks for itself. So I think you've gotten pretty good at it, Justin. I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that. So before we talk, we were talking about one of the things that I think is so important. And Tony Robbins talks about it. He said, you should work 4 times as hard on yourself as you do on your business. So we were talking about 7 strategies for to catapult yourself into a better mindset, which then will translate into 7 strategies to catapult your business. You want to share a little bit more about that with our listeners?
Yeah, so first off, a couple of things is I actually don't really call them strategies, to be honest, Jim. I call them stuffs.
Stuffs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because in the world that we now live in, you know, I'm not sure if you've got kids, but some of your listeners might have kids, and you say to your kids, what did you learn at school today? Stuff. What did you do with your friends in the playground today? Stuff.
Right.
And so because people don't actually consider what we do as a job, your listeners will be able to say to their partner or their owner or their clients, you know, what did you do today? Well, I listened to a podcast on stuff. And really what I know is that if we get certain stuff right in our life, then we don't get stuffed in business. And so that's kind of what we'll talk about today, is just like 7 perhaps we should know, perhaps we should, and we could be doing it better. So I guess as we run through them, an idea for the listeners would be to self-audit and perhaps rank themselves out of 10 on each one of these to work out which one they could work on better, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I lost you a little bit at the beginning of that. Can you recap that real quick for the listeners?
Yeah, so what would be really great would be, as we're going through this, is to have people self-audit
Okay.
out of 10 each of these stuffs to make sure that they're doing it to the optimum level.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. So with that said, and I agree with you, I think self-audits is something that should go on continuously. At least I try to do it. But what are some of the stuffs that you like them to self-audit?
Well, I guess the first one is one. I don't know how common this is, but when you listen to any leader in the business world, everybody's doing a morning ritual. You know what that looks like, what time of day that morning ritual is. Well, that is really up to the individual. I know that I used to be a late worker till 11 or 12 o'clock at night, and then a very late riser, and certain circumstances changed in my life, and now I'm up at 5:30 in the morning and go to bed earlier. So do I like that? Well, some good TV, but it does allow me to have a morning ritual. And what we know from lots of research, and there are plenty of listeners here that would know this research, Jim, is that the best way to start the day is a workout, is exercise. And again, for probably some of your listeners who are personal trainers, they're training clients at 6 o'clock in the morning or 5:30 in the morning. Well, the reality is, if you're not up and you're not firing on all 6 cylinders for that first client at 5:30 in the morning, how are they getting energy from you? And the energy that you're giving off could in fact be pretend energy because you've had a double shot coffee. But perhaps in order to grow your business and strengthen your abilities as a trainer, as well as a business person, it might mean you've got to be up at 4:30, train from 5 till 5:30, just a half-hour session, and then get ready for your client. But the morning rituals are critical. And what we know is there are about 4 strategies that people use. First one is a workout, whether that is a high intensity workout, a meditation workout, whether it's walk, it doesn't matter. It's some sort of exercise. The second one is journaling, looking and writing down some thoughts that have occurred from the day before, some thoughts that you've got for the day coming forward. Again, lots of research around gratitude journaling. Number 3 is fueling the body. Breakfast is a pretty important aspect. And I know there's lots of research out about fasting in the morning and all of that sort of stuff, but we do know that when we've got fuel in our tank, we can operate better. And the 4th strategy in your morning ritual is, wait for this one, not to check your emails. Because as soon as you check those emails, you become someone else's priority. And if you're going into seeing clients, or you want to get into an exercise routine, or you want to do your journaling, but you've just checked your emails, guess where your attention's going to be? Those emails.
Right.
So there are 4 tips for people to start their mornings on a better foot.
Yeah, I think those are great points, and I agree with you on the rituals. I think it's so important. The quote that I've been using a lot lately is from the book Atomic Habits: is we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. So that morning routine is key, because when you exercise, whatever form of exercise you choose, I usually like to try to meditate. I don't always do that, but it helps declutter and makes me more proactive instead of reactive. And we had another previous guest on, she made these what we call move books. And she said, realistically, you can only accomplish 3 things in a day. If you whittle it down, if you distill it down to the three essential things for that day. Now, those things can cover a lot of ground, but really only 3 things. If you do more than that, then it's just an exercise in frustration. And then it gives you something to focus on in your day. And then with the emails, I agree. That's why I never check my email before I go to bed, because I won't be able to do anything about it until I can get up and respond to it or take action on it. So all it's going to do is give me anxiety and mess up my sleep for the evening. So same thing in the morning. If I've got to focus on clients or something else, then the last thing I want to do is have something that's going to keep me from being present with my clients and doing my job. So I think those are all great points.
Yeah, no, I think I think in fairness, we overestimate our ability to block things out, and the ability to be able to block out a nasty email that we might have received or whatever it may be. It's not easy to do. Just on your meditation as well, I think, again, being a non-meditative person, I always thought meditation was sitting in a corner and going om, with your legs crossed and your eyes closed. But I've learned that you can meditate while you walk. And in fact, for me, when I meditate in my own way, when I work out in the gym, because I'm not training with anybody else, I'm in my own world. I'm thinking about the day. I'm clearing my mind at different stages. So I guess the definition of that meditation or meditative state is so varied. We don't have to just pigeonhole it to be sitting in a corner omming.
Yeah, I agree 100%. At one point, my meditation was going for a morning run. So it could take any form that you want. It's just a matter of clearing your head. And for me anyway, clearing my head and separating my thoughts so that I can choose which ones I want to act on, instead of feeling like I have to act on every thought that comes in my head. Okay, so that's great stuffs to begin with. What else do you have in the stuffs bag?
Look, I think the other one, or number 2 for me, is around avoiding distractions when you're at work, when you're at home, when you're with your clients, and when you're with your family. Those damn devices that we all carry now, and we have those little red dots that pop up on our Instagram or our Facebook or our text messages, whatever it may be. Those distractions have a massive impact on our presence, whether we can be physically present, but are we mentally present for our clients and in our business? So wherever possible, we want to get rid of those distractions. We want to be able to narrow our focus. I'm a big fan of I think it's called the Pomodoro method of working, which is where you go really hard. It's like interval training. You go really hard for 45 minutes, knowing the finish line, and you can whatever you want to do, and then you can go hard for another 45 minutes. I found my sweet spot is around that 45 to 55 minute attention span to really nail some work. Once I get beyond that, my mind wanders, but I also allocate time for my mind to wander. So I think that's a big one. And a great little strategy that Amy Porterfield shares, who, for those that are unaware, she's a great person to follow online. She gives a whole lot of tips around social and marketing and business. And she talks about a thing called tiger time. And tiger time is where you guard time with absolute fierceness, that there are no interruptions. And if you're in an office, you can put up a sign that says, I'm in tiger time, so people know not to interrupt you. But it's that 45-minute time slot where you turn turning off the notifications. You're focusing on 1, 2, or 3 areas that you want to get done in that period of time. So it's critical that you have that focus, but you stop the distractions. Turn off your phone, put a sign on the door that says, don't come in for the next 45 minutes. I'm working on a project. And when you communicate in something that you do, I'll get it.
I lost you. Missed the last part of that.
Oh, okay. So one of the keys though is when you're going to look, say Tiger Time, focus on a task, is that you must tell either your life partner or your kids or your work partners that you're going into Tiger Time and that you don't want any distractions for a 45-minute period, so that they understand, and plus they become supportive of that time frame and you going in there to avoid distractions, to just focus on one thing.
I like that a lot. And what Tiger Time? I like that. And what was the name of the lady that you mentioned again?
Amy Porterfield.
Annie Porterfield. Okay. Yeah, I know one thing that I do for that is I own a training studio, and I rarely work out in my training studio. I have a gym membership to a big box gym because I can't train in my studio. There's too many distractions between clients, phone calls, trainers wanting something. I see something that's bugging me that I have to address just right then, and then it screws up my workout. Where when I go to my gym to work out, I put my hat on, put it down, put my earbuds in, and I go at it. And it's just me and my workout. And my workouts are so much better, and they refresh me a lot more than when I train in my club. So I guess that's one example of Tiger Time.
Oh, absolutely. And that, in fact, is a great metaphor for what we're talking about from a business side of things.
Mm-hmm.
You close everything off, you put your hat on, you put your earbuds in, and you focus, away you go. And you're in your own world, but that has to be, you've got to tell people within your business that that's what you're doing, so that they don't think, what drugs is he on? He's not talking to us. He's in a bad mood today, or
Mm-hmm.
she's not focused on the business today. She is absolutely focused on the business, and that's why she's in that Tiger Time.
I like that, Tiger Time. I'm definitely going to use that. All right. So what's next on the stuffs bag? I like this.
Mate, the next one is, I think every meeting that we have, whether it's a one-on-one or a group meeting, or it's a conversation with a client, or it's a conversation with a team member, I'm a big fan of every meeting having is outcome based.
Okay.
Sometimes could be just for us to connect better, just for us to connect at a deeper level, build that trust. That is an outcome of our meeting. But I honestly believe we will go into conversations with team members, even with clients, with no real agenda. So if we flip our mind and think, okay, I'm going to spend 15 minutes with that client out there on the gym floor, just talking to them, what's the purpose of that? And we've got to go into that conversation with an outcome in mind. When I'm sitting down with a team member and they haven't been performing, or they have been performing, and I'm going to sit down with them for 5 minutes, what's the outcome of that 5-minute conversation? So it says we're smart goaling every conversation that we have. But what that means is that we walk away knowing that we have achieved something from that conversation, and that the person we've had that conversation with is walking away going, oh yeah, I now know what that conversation was about, and I've achieved something.
Yeah, I like that quite a bit. There was a book called Meetings Suck.
Mm.
And it talks about that every meeting should have a time limit. It should have an agenda, and every
Yes,
agenda item should have a time limit so you don't get bogged down. But I like that, having an end in mind. You can even make the agenda the goal for that meeting. So I like
correct.
that quite a bit. Can you give me an example of how you use that in your business?
Yeah, absolutely. I know when I'm working with, if I'm doing a coach with I always say to them at the actually even before the conversation, but they'll receive an email prior to that conversation that says, "Hey, we're catching up tomorrow. What do you want at the end of that conversation to walk away with?" And
Okay.
in other words, what's the outcome of that 30-minute conversation? Great. I had I used to have a personal trainer that worked for me, and he would start every single session with the same question. And it was, "G'day, Jim. Do you want to work out at a medium level or a hard today? And at the end of the session, how do you want to feel?" So there was an outcome base at the end of that session. And that's what, so throughout the session, the trainer was able to say to the client, "Okay, we're working towards that feeling. We're working towards working hard." And I can say during my coaching sessions, "Yep, we're working towards it. That's a great one. Let's tick that off as step 2 in order to achieve that goal of what we want." It's like a roadmap. If you know your destination, then it's a lot easier to get to. If you don't know your destination, then you're just kind of meandering through the conversation.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I like that, setting the tone for the training session at the beginning. That's a great example. All right. Thanks, Justin. So that's number 3. And what is going on the Stuffs tour? What's next?
Okay, number 4 is I guess it could be seen as a controversial one, and that is that you are in control of your own professional development. A lot of employees, whether they're a receptionist on front desk, or whether they're a personal trainer or they're a group fitness instructor at that employee level, they have an expectation that the employer must develop them both personally but primarily professionally. And if you want to progress in life, you got to take the bull by the horns, and you got to take control of your own professional development. And you you know, you're in control of what that is. And the cool thing in the world that we now live in, as you'd be aware, Jim, is there's so much stuff online that if you wanted to get better at a aspect of your job, you can do that by spending 20 minutes on the internet, knowing clearly what you want to find the answer to get better at, and then reading an article, watching a video, listening to a podcast, reading a book review, whatever it may be. You actually are in control now more than ever of your own professional development. So take control and get better at what you do.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. And it's one that I believe to my core. Before I opened my training studio, I worked at a personal training facility for 22 years and managed it. And there were trainers in there that never left the 4 walls, never went to continuing ed, never read a book or anything. And this was back in the day where you had to physically go to seminars. Today, there's more resources than ever. Like you said, there's webinars,
Yeah.
online, books, podcasts, you name it. You don't have to leave your hometown to get education or get personal development. So it's easier than ever, but you have to pick a path, because I know there are a lot of trainers out there. They want 15 different certifications in 15 different areas. And I think it would probably benefit them a little bit more to get 5 certifications and maybe in one area. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, again, controversial. I agree with you. I believe we can go deeper in a niche than wider in a market. When we go deeper in a niche and we have 5 certifications in a particular area, then we are positioned more as an expert, which means we can charge more. You know, if you're going to a general doctor, the general doctor charges $50 an hour, but the specialist charges $100 an hour. It's still an hour, but because that specialist has gone deeper in that area, they can charge more. And so I absolutely agree. I think you're much better to be the expert in prenatal or postnatal, the expert in kids fitness, the expert in rehab, rather than the person that's done 15 qualifications across 15 different areas.
I agree. So, in your business, what type of personal development do you see people going for? Is it kind of run the gambit?
Yeah, look, it's a really interesting question you asked, because I've got to be careful not to get on my soapbox here. I see a lot of trainers and a lot of trainers wanting to get those variety of certifications, but a lot of focus on the technical side of being a trainer. And I think the disappointing thing for me is there's a lot of trainers on the planet that leave our industry highly qualified with technical knowledge, but they lost the ability to run a business, or they lost the soft skills to be able to connect, or they didn't have the sales skills, or they didn't know how to budget because they didn't do the business side of things well. And so they go, I'm not making any money out of this. So they're highly qualified, but they're not running a business. So I think the important thing is that you get a mix of both of those technical skills, but also business skills, and really understand how a business would operate instead of, and you would have seen this moving from being an employee to running your own studio. It's a whole new skill set that's needed when you're going to a studio model.
That's why I started the podcast. Is I opened I was a great trainer. I am a great trainer. Had a loyal following. Lots of clients followed me, which enabled me to open up my studio. But I had other trainers that I had to feed and take care of. And so I had to learn about business. I had to learn about marketing, payroll, rent, budgets, systems, scaling, all of those things. And I had a guest on, he said it perfectly. There are phenomenal trainers that are starving. And then there are just horrific trainers who are just kicking back and counting their cash. And the biggest difference is learning how to run a business. You know, a perfect example is like, okay, so you've maxed out your training time. You can't take any more hours. So in order to increase your revenue, you got to bring on a new trainer. So you bring on a new trainer and start taking kind of a cut of their pie, but then they're not doing things quite the way that you do them or the way that you want to do them. And it's because there's no system in place. There's no way to manage them. There's no guidelines for them to follow. There's no quality control. There's no way to guide the customer experience. There's no way to track your revenue that you're getting from them. There's no way to run a business. I mean, do you find that to be true?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And if you don't want to put on another, you put yourself, but most scared because they've done. I mentioned it a few times already in our conversation, Jim, the idea of systems and processes. If any of your listeners have not read the E-Myth, then they've got to almost stop the podcast now, go to Amazon, buy it, get it in their letterbox or on their Kindle as quickly as possible, because that's exactly what he talks about in that book. Is systems enable us to run our business, and that's what we need. And there's your professional development to take your business from point A to point B, it's going to be systems. It's not going to be 15 more clients, because as you said, if you're maxed out with clients, what do you do?
Yeah. What was the name of that book again?
The E-Myth.
Oh, the E-Myth. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, talking about the different hats, the technician, the entrepreneur. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Got it.
Sure. Yeah, that's an essential. That's a business essential. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So I like that one a lot. And that is a valid point, because like you said, it's the reason I started this podcast. I was floundering until I found a mastermind group to help me, some group of mentors, and then starting the podcast to interview, people just like you, so I can learn more about business. So I like that one quite a bit. So what's next on this tour?
Yeah, look, number 5 is one more for your heart than anything else, and that's giving back to your community. If we look at the leaders across the world, the thing that they do better than almost anyone else is that they give back. And sometimes they give back with money, and we don't always have that money, so that's not something that we may look at. But they give back in time, or they give back in muscle, like getting in and helping out, and that sort of thing. And so, for example, I speak at conferences all around the world, or do things like this. And well, you're not paying me to be here, and I'm not here to get clients. I'm here to help people. So I'm giving back to the community, the fitness industry community. And what I think we need to be conscious of is that when we give back, we feel better about ourselves, and we know that we're having an impact on people's lives. So sometimes, yes, it's nice to be able to put $100 donation towards a charity that means something to us. But sometimes it's also nice to be able to just give back with some time and some energy into our local community. And we also know that the consumer these days loves to see a business giving back to the local community. So instead of giving money, for example, to the National Heart Foundation, where the money goes into a big pot and we're not really sure where it goes, your consumers and your clients would love to see you giving back to your local community, like either giving your time or some money towards someone locally who might have a heart condition or is going through some tough times. So it's kind of I guess it's a bit of an emotional one.
Yeah. I think that's another great point. I had another guest on, June Kahn, and that's how she built her business. She didn't do any social media. She just did community events with businesses around her. She built relationships with some doctors that she was working with that would send her clients. She would send clients. And so it was just building relationships and building and being a part of like an integral part of the community, because you're right, people really like that. As much as the internet and everything else, it's a worldwide thing, but people like local. And if you can be that part of your community that gives back and people recognize you in the community, that's huge and can pay huge dividends to your business as well.
I think it needs to be authentic too, Jim. I think
Absolutely.
You can't fake it. And I remember having a conversation with someone, and they said, I said, like, in my business, I want to be able to give to a charity, and I want to make it the charity of the business. And they said, well, what one do you want to do? And I talked about one out here in Australia called the Glenn McGrath Foundation, which is a breast cancer foundation. And they went, oh, that's great. That's huge. That's massive. I go, yeah, that's why I want to do it. And she said, do you know anyone that's had breast cancer? I went, no, my mother-in-law did. And she said, so is that something that would drive you? And I went, no, not really. And she said, well, don't give money to that charity. because then you're doing it for the wrong reason. There has to be authenticity around who in the community you're giving back to. And that made me stop and really think about it. And I went, yeah, I get what that means now. It's got to be real because it's got to come from the heart, not because it's something I should do.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And you're right. You can't fake it because people pick up on that right away. It's got to be authentic. It's got to be real. Yeah, that's good. That's good advice. All right. And what's number 6?
Number 6 is the complete goal setting system. I know people are listening are going, oh yeah, no shit, we've got to set goals in our life if we're going to achieve anything. But let me tell you, I sat down with a bunch of personal trainers last year, and there was 12 of them. And I said to them, okay, tell me about your health and fitness goals for the year. 1 out of 12 personal trainers had a goal around their health and fitness. And then that goal wasn't even a SMART goal. So I find it amazingly hypocritical of us as an industry, where as a salesperson, the first thing we say when somebody walks in is, why are you here? How can I help you? What's your goal? And then as a personal trainer, we're going, what's your goal? But often we don't have goals ourselves. So in order to achieve excellence, in order for us to achieve just a better performance in life, we need to know what our destination is. And we need to know what our destination is around our own health and fitness goals, our financial goals. If you're a spiritual person, your spiritual goal, your emotional goal, and breaking our life down and setting some goals, making sure they're specific, making sure they're measurable, working out some action steps to be able to achieve them, spending some time on ourselves around those goals. And I always then like to say, okay, now you need to share that with someone for that accountability. It could be your business coach, it could be your life coach, it could be your best friend. It needs to be someone that can help hold you accountable or guide you as well. But taking that time, and it, you know, we're doing this recording at the beginning of the year. I think the data seems to suggest that most New Year's resolutions are done and dusted by the 12th of January. It's because we haven't done the goal setting process right and we haven't shared it with someone. So I guess that's where I'm coming from with this one. Have you seen that with some of the people you work with?
Yeah, absolutely. Personal trainers just take it for granted. They just assume, oh, I'm going to be healthy. This is going to be a healthy year, but they don't set any specific, or as you say, and I like that, SMART goals, because I use that a lot. And I think that's the way to set goals. But you want to share with your listeners what a SMART goal is?
Yeah, so a SMART goal is something that's really specific, it's measurable, it's got to be attainable, it's got to be realistic, and it's done in a timely manner. So for example, we would all hear this in our industry at some stage. A client comes in, you sit down, what results would you like? I'd like to lose 20 pounds by in the next 30 days. Okay, so that's specific, it's measurable, it's timely, but it's probably not attainable, and it's definitely not realistic. So our job as a trainer is then to shape that goal to be more attainable and realistic. So the important components are that it's specific, that you can put a measure. Did you achieve it or did you not achieve it? Can you actually do it? And what's the timeline around that?
Yeah.
So as I said, we do it really well with our clients. We do it poorly with us.
Yeah, I agree that we don't hold ourselves to the same standards all the time. We tend to be kind of hypocritical. But I like that SMART goal, that acronym of SMART. And then the other thing that I like that you said is that tell somebody, because then that makes it real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you said, you need somebody to hold you accountable so that when they say, hey Jim, did you drop your body fat 2% like you wanted to by this date? And you're like, shit, no. You know, and so that's the push you sometimes need to maybe put in that extra effort to attain that goal. I agree with you. And like you said, I think it's important for trainers or people in the industry to set health and fitness goals, because when you do that, you have to go through some struggles to meet that goal. You have to make some changes. You have to change your routine, maybe change some habits. And changing habits isn't that easy. It takes some work up front. And so, but when you do that, it's like you're taking the same journey as your clients do. And then
Exactly.
all of a sudden you can relate more with your clients and they can relate to you. And then that comes across as genuine, as caring. You build that trust.
So I had a client that I worked with that took this to an amazing level, Jim, and what they did was they had all of their goals were, and they got them printed on a poster and hung like each individual trainer had a poster up inside their personal training studio. So every staff member had their 6-month goal for the year, the first 6 months of the year, their health and fitness goal. Now, one of the ladies that worked for them was an admin lady. She was not a fitness lady at all, and she was overweight. And so her goal was simply to be able to walk at 5 kilometers an hour for 30 minutes. And then this is on the wall. So every client that came in could see the 6-month goals for all of the staff. All of a sudden now there's a lot more empathy towards the clients, because they've put their goals out there, and there's a lot more accountability as well.
Yeah, I agree. And it helps build that community that is so vital. And everybody's always asking, how do you build community? How do you build culture? That's one of the ways.
Absolutely.
And it's authentic. All right.
The other thing that you mentioned, and about that, the sharing side of things, look, I know about you, but for me and probably lots of your listeners, our news feeds are filled these days with fitness business coaches. And really what they're doing is they're helping you. Majority of them are hanging their hat on being able to generate leads in your business. And that's kind of their value proposition. They're not the right person for you to share your goal with. They're a consultant. A business coach is someone that helps you and teaches you to be able to fish. As a consultant, those people will do the fishing for you, and you actually don't learn the skill. As a coach, they will hold you accountable and help drive you forward. And what I find with some of the clients that I work with is that they come in and they want to have a coaching session to achieve their goals every week. And I'm like, unless you're setting such small action steps to achieve your goal, you actually don't need a coaching session every week for business. Maybe once every 2 weeks, bi-weekly. Once a month is often enough, because we're still running our business as well as trying to achieve our goal. And so my thought for everybody out there is, whether you are paying a business coach or whether it's just somebody you know who's going to hold you accountable, don't put so much pressure on yourself to be achieving things every single week in your business. Life still continues. Set yourself a goal of what you want, the actions that you want to achieve over a 30-day period, and have those check-ins over 30 days rather than necessarily over 7 or even 14. That sets you up for far more success and less stress and less frustration, because if you're paying for a coach, take someone for done there, what's having the session?
The thing about that too is that realistically, going back to what you said about the importance of systems, and that's the way to level up your business. If, say, you want to do something or change something in your business, it's going to take you at least a month to think about that system, draw a draft of that system, implement the system, manage the system, hold people accountable to the system. And that's one system. And in 1 month is kind of a crunch to do that. So if you can put in one system a month, then you're rocking and rolling. But you can't put in a system in a week and expect it to turn
No way.
around your business, or even in a month, really, to turn around your business. But you have to take all of those steps. So you can't, I agree with you. I think a monthly call is more realistic and more doable, gives you your focus for the month to do all those things to make that work. Have you
Yep,
found
totally.
that to be successful with some of your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I've actually found the opposite, which is when they came in and clients were wanting to have a session every week. I would sit down with them and I go, so how did you go with what we planned for you to do this week? Oh yeah, I didn't get to that. Okay, so how does that make you feel? It makes me feel like I'm down in the dumps. Okay, what stopped you doing it? Well, I had this, and this come up. Okay, so what's our goal from this week to next week? I want to get what I didn't get done last week. And my job then really as a coach is to pick up the pieces of this broken person because they haven't achieved what they set out to achieve. And that's just not fair on them. And I'm taking money as a coach for jam. I'm not really doing anything. So by lengthening that process, it opens up that window. And I guess it comes back to being, attainable and realistic. What do you want to achieve? Is that realistic to do 3 weeks, or a month? Oh, it's far more easy to do it in a month. Right. Well, then let's do it in a month because you've still got to run your business.
Yeah, absolutely. You still got to run the day-to-day of your business. And I had another guest on the podcast who said, he had a business coach and it probably took him 3 or 4 months to take action on what the coach was telling him to do. Because what would happen is he would, it's kind of like, I use the analogy, I hear clients, and I can't believe this, but I still hear today, clients, well, I have to get in shape before I come in and train with you. That is just
Yes.
idiotic. But I hear owners say, well, I got to clean this up before I can start doing that. And
Yeah.
and then you're like, I think you're putting the cart before the horse. I think if you focus on that, it will clean all that stuff up for you. So by all means, if you're hiring a coach and taking the time to meet with a coach, listen to the coach. Just like you want your clients to listen to you, listen to your coach. I can't say that enough.
And can I just also say, go in, and when you're looking for a coach, go in with an agenda in mind. Go in with an outcome-based meeting with you for a coach, because there are so many different coaches. For example, you wouldn't necessarily talk to me about how to make your fitness studio operations run better, because that's not my area of expertise as a business coach. My area of expertise as a business coach is far more strategic on how to grow a business. So when you know what you want to achieve, why you want to coach, then you can go in and you can say, actually, I want to coach because I want them to teach me how to do those operations better. Or I want a consultant that'll come in and I'll outsource that lead generation. So you've got to be, again, really clear on what you want from a coach in order to help you achieve your goals. But if you don't know your goals, then there's no point going to a coach.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like when I first met with a branding specialist when I was opening up your studio, she said, "Who's your ideal client?" I said, "Everybody." She's like, "Oh God, we got some work to do." So it's the same with like when you meet a coach. But before we move on to the number 7, there's so much BS out there. There's so many like guys who or people who got some kind of janky qualification or janky offer. How do you vet a serious business coach?
There's a couple of things that I think. The first one is I think their longevity. Like how long have they been coaching? Being in our industry, we can look at sport as a good analogy. There are some class athletes who play basketball, football, ice hockey, whatever sport, but they don't transition well into being a good coach.
Mm-hmm.
So just because you're a great athlete doesn't make you a great coach. Just because you're a great business person doesn't make you a great coach. And there's a lot of assumptions that actually happens. It's a very different skill to being a coach. Also, when we think about it, my thought process is if someone is just helping you generate leads in your business, you need 100 leads every month. What's your sales process look like? What's your retention of your clients look like? Because if you need to generate that many leads, obviously people are going out the back door. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the trend at the moment is that coaches or consultants are pushing that, and they're pushing that because in their club they were able to make it work. Again, that doesn't necessarily make sure that it can work for you. So the way I vet a coach is number one is how long have they been doing the job for? Because if they've been doing it for a long time, they're obviously pretty good at it and they've got enough clients. Second one is give me the name of a client that you no longer train. Because they obviously either didn't achieve the results or they did and they don't need you anymore. Because, when we look at social proof, the testimonials, we only ever read the good ones.
Right.
So give me the name of a client that you no longer work with. That would be another question you could ask them. But I would also, again, be really clear on what you want. And then if that coach is prepared to give you 30 minutes, 45 minutes of their time for free to start with, you've got to make sure you get on with that coach. Because we all have a different way of coaching. And for me, I always say, look, I'll spend 30 minutes, 45 minutes with you for free to see if we connect. Because I might not like you either, Jim. I might not like how you do. I might not like how you do your business. How you talk to your clients or the marketing that you've done. And you might be a low-cost operator. And I mean, you know what? I just want to work with premium operators. So from a coach's perspective, it allows me to gauge the client, but also allows the client to gauge me. So you should, just like you would in a personal training session, do a try before you buy or take it for a test drive. You should take the business coach for a test drive as well.
Yeah, to see if you're compatible or kind of the right coach for you or vice versa. I agree. And I agree with you. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I can tell you there's a lot of clients that don't like the way I coach because I have extreme candor with them and I tell them the way I see it. And that honesty and that brutal honesty sometimes hurts. And some clients just respond beautifully to that, and others crawl up into a shell and go, "You're killing me. I can't do this anymore with you." And I go, "Okay, that's fine."
Yeah, I got you. I like that. And some clients too, I can attest, are too big of a pain in the ass to deal with, to be quite honest. Yeah. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
And if your time is limited, yeah.
yeah. So, those are great points. What's number 7 on the list?
Yeah, look, number 7 is not going to surprise anybody that's listening, and that is discipline. We have to have the discipline in business, have the discipline in life to stick to what we're doing. We have to have the discipline to try things, to persist, to try again, and to simply do stuff. The world that we now live in, there's plenty of people out there that are thinking, okay, it didn't work, so it's never going to work. That doesn't quite work like that. It didn't work this way, but if we tweak it, it may now work, or the timing could be different. So we did, and I know this is a hard one for lots of people, is the idea of instant gratification. And you mentioned this right at the top of the show. I didn't get to where I did overnight. Like, I've been in the industry 31 years to be able to have the credibility to be able to be talking to you and talking about these things. I persisted. There are more things that I failed at than I succeeded at. But I had that discipline to keep coming back. We talked about it before, auditing what I did to work out how we could make it better, making some tough business decisions. I've certainly had products that I was selling and that they didn't sell, and they were emotionally, I was tied to them. But from a business perspective, it just didn't work. So I had to cut those ties. So to be successful, the 7th stuff is discipline. Is the discipline to try things, to persist, to try again, to make tough decisions. And the most important thing is just to do things. This is a great quote that I've heard, is that if you wait for perfection, you'll never actually do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a George Patton.
So you just get and have a crack. Yeah, just get in and have a crack.
Yeah. George Patton said that imperfect plan enacted today is much better than a perfect plan enacted tomorrow.
Love it.
And there's a couple of areas that I want to jump into that with you. And one is that a lot of times I think discipline / willpower is overrated, because there are times that willpower is going to fail you. Like, if I bring cookies into my house, at some point in the middle of the night, I'm going to be weak and I'm going to eat the cookies. And I consider myself to be a disciplined person. But by bringing the cookies in the house, I didn't set myself up for success. So it's important to be disciplined. But where does that fall with also setting yourself up for success instead of temptation? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think if you have your ducks in line, it's a lot easier to be disciplined. I guess it comes back to, even thinking about what the goals are. When you know where you want to achieve and what you want to do, it's a lot easier to have discipline. It's a lot easier to have that focus. There's a lot of research now coming out that from a purely logistic perspective around discipline, is that sleep critical. The more sleep and the better quality sleep we have has a massive impact on our willpower, but B, our discipline. So if you are not tired and you're sleeping well, there is research that would indicate that your willpower will actually say, no, I'm not going to have those cookies. But if you are tired, then your decision making is also fatigued, and your discipline becomes fatigued. So part of the discipline is staying on top of your sleep. It's knowing where you want to head and being focused on that. And then, as I said, just trying stuff, just trying. I just find too many people are afraid of that failure.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's with regards to what you said about sleep, I think it's important to set yourself up for success, to be disciplined and make smarter choices. And one of the things is just setting a bedtime and sticking to it. Then that's part of that process of setting yourself up for success. And I like what you said about sticking to it, trying new things and trying them again, because about 2 years ago, I picked up jujitsu, and I've fallen in love with it. I absolutely love it. I'm still a white belt, and I'll go to class, and we'll practice a move, and I'll practice this move for like a week. Like this week, we're practicing takedowns, and then we'll go live, and I can't hit anything, and I tell myself, well, this doesn't work. This is stupid. He taught me this, and now I'm trying it and it's not working. And then I'll go roll with a black belt, and he'll hit the same takedown that I'm trying to do. And then, and he'll hit it on me, and he'll hit it on everybody, and he'll hit it every time. And I ask him, I'm like, how do you do that? He's like, practice, practice, practice. And I also play hockey. I'm a goalie, and we were on like a beer league team with this former professional hockey player. And the guy, he told this guy on our team, go to the net, go here on the net, put your stick on the ice, and I'm going to get you the pass, and it's going to go in the net. So he did exactly what he did. Pass went right off his stick, and it went in the net. And in the locker room, he's like, man, that was great. You told me to go here, put my stick here. You put in, he goes, how do you do that? And he says, it's simple. He goes, when you get home from work tomorrow, you take a bucket of pucks and you pass them in your driveway. And you do that for 90 minutes every day for the next 10 years. So it's like, but to that point, it's like, just because somebody taught it to you or you learned it and you tried it once and it didn't work, doesn't mean it doesn't work. It means that you have to find out how it works for you. And the only way you do that is to keep trying, that persistence, like you said. Do you have any examples along that same vein?
Yeah, let me give you one. It's a bit left field, but I think it is that persistence, and also it's about timing. So there was a rock song called Torn, Torn. And in 1997, Natalie Imbruglia, who's an Australian singer, the song Torn. And it became #1 around the world. It was an unbelievable hit for her. Some people actually say in Australia, some data seems to suggest it's the most played song on Australian radio. What people are unaware of is that Torn was originally released in 1993 by a Danish band. So 4 years prior, it was originally released. And it was in fact released, I want to say 3 or 4 other bands did their version of Torn, including a heavy metal version of Torn, before finally in 97, Imbruglia's version hit the sweet spot. So I guess the story there is it's about timing. If we could have given up on that song and said the song's no good, but it was released, didn't work. No, let's tweak it a bit. Released, didn't work. Tweak a bit. Released, and then it worked. So I think this is a really key thing for us in challenges that we might run in our business. So if we're doing some sort of transformation challenge, we can kind of get it about 80% right. Well, we should run that challenge, get the feedback from the members or the clients, make tweaks. And we might have only got 10 people doing it the first time, but then we come back 6 months later and now we get 20 people. We tweak it again, and then we come back and we get all of our clients involved in the challenge. We can't have our expectations too high, but we've got to have the discipline to stick with something long enough for it to either work or to fail, learn from the failure and either get rid of it out of the business because it's not going to work, or tweak it because we think it still work.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, you just got to stick with it. There's a podcast that I listen to by black belt in jiu-jitsu that I know. It's called I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu. And it's actually a really great podcast if you're into jiu-jitsu. But that's what he talks about. He's like, when he was a white belt, he tried a move. He really liked it. And he sucked at it. And he's like, well, that just presented me with new questions. What do I have to do to make this move work? And I'm going to stick with this move until I'm unstoppable with it, until people know it's coming and they still can't stop it. And let me tell you something, this guy's an up and coming black belt. He's really good. So that's a great point. Okay, Justin, I want to respect our time. I appreciate you taking the time, but now we're to my favorite part of the program. It's the questions, the 3 questions, because I think we get some of the best answers. So my first question is, what has been your most successful failure? And by that, I mean, at the time, it seemed like a devastating loss that you weren't going to be able to recover from, but you were able to take life lessons from it that propelled you to greater success down the road.
Yep, that's actually a really easy question for me to answer. And it is this: being diagnosed with ulcerative colitis and spending a week in hospital where I had an iron infusion to build up the iron content in my blood because I had basically was losing way too much blood through this chronic disease. And a nurse coming up to me and saying, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I run my own business, so I'm just doing some work on my computer. My wife picks up my computer tonight, takes it home, and all those email. This is before wireless, and the emails will all be sent out." She said, "Do you realise that anecdotally, ulcerative colitis is caused through stress?" I said, "No, I didn't realise that." She said, "If you de-stress your life, there's a good chance you're going to get better." I went, "Thank you for that." And as a result, I completely changed how I operated, managed my life, changed my life, and I'm far less stressed.
Nice. So what were some of the changes that you made?
This may well surprise you and your listeners. I started exercising on a regular basis. I set some goals around exercise. I started to go to bed earlier, started to wake up earlier, and just taught myself not to feel guilty about shutting the laptop down and going for a walk. Or if I wanted to, and as you can see, I work from a home office. If I wanted to go downstairs and watch Monday Night Football, which is Tuesday morning in Australia, if I wanted to do that, I gave myself permission to do that. So they were the big 3 things: exercise, sleep, and not feel guilty about not working.
You know, and I think that's more common than people want to admit. I know it happened to me. I know by the second year after I opened my business, I was in the worst shape of my life because I sacrificed everything for the business. I would sacrifice my workout time. I would sacrifice my family time. I would sacrifice my shutdown time. and I was in the worst shape. I felt awful. And it was to the point where I would work just because I didn't want to go home, because I wasn't putting anything in at home. So home was miserable. So I agree with you. And I think that the better your off switch is, the better your on switch is. Because a lot of times during that off time is when you come up with creative solutions for the things you're dealing with. So I think it's really, really important to have that balance. I like that quite a bit. Thanks for sharing that, Justin. All right.
Pleasure.
And then my next question is, in your time in the fitness industry, and it's a long time, we're talking 31 years, what has been the biggest surprise that you've had to deal with that you did not see coming?
Oh, look, it's got to be the failure of the Reebok slide. I was sure that slide thing, you know, where you put the booties on and you move laterally, I was sure that that was just going to take off. No. That was a joke.
Not a lot of hockey in Australia, I take it.
No, not a lot of hockey. It's a perfect tool for hockey players, but for the average person, I'm not sure they've got the adductors and abductors to withstand that exercise. Look, you know what? I think the thing that has amazed me about our industry is the resilience that we have. We've been through, in 31 years, I think I've seen 2, 3, probably 4 different levels of recession, and yet people still exercise. They still want to exercise. But the thing that disappoints me is that we're still only getting 20%, maybe 30% in some countries of people exercising on a regular basis. There's still a plethora of people that are not exercising. They're not moving at all, that we should be trying to work out how we can get them to move and move more often. There's still this gym intimidation. There's still people are scared of personal trainers. And we've got to reduce that. But we are a resilient industry and we do withstand lots of different pressures. And I think this is now a big pressure that we've got to not only withstand, we've got to embrace. How do we get more people moving and moving more often?
That is the $1 billion question to solve. Whoever solves that is going to be a billionaire if they can dive into that 70, 80% untapped market of people not moving. I talk about it all the time. And then my last question is, since we've been talking pretty much the whole podcast about it, where do you go for your personal and professional development?
Look, I got to admit, I'm a big reader. And old school read. So I'm a books person. I'm just looking like, I'm a book person rather than a Kindle person. So I listen to podcasts when I'm driving or when I'm flying, and I read. And that's where I go. I spend a lot of, I guess. Yep.
What are the last 3 books that you read?
Make Today Count, John Maxwell. The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod.
Okay.
And Building a Story Brand, Donald Miller.
And what did you get out of those?
So this one is a really interesting brand. Is we all have a story about our business, and we can use that in our marketing. The problem is we don't all articulate what the story is behind what we do or why we do it. So this talks about putting the story behind our business, because that will actually also make us more unique and different to everybody else.
I like that.
So, why do I do what I do? I do what I do is to get more people moving and moving more often. to reduce the healthcare costs around the globe, so that my daughter can grow up in a world that I grew up with, in having lots of opportunities, because the opportunities that I have won't exist because governments are going to be paying to keep a aging, fattening, sickening population alive. And that's my story. No one else on the planet has a story like that.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree with that story. What about the other two books?
Yeah, this is interesting because this one just reinforced the whole morning ritual idea. And so I found it quite fascinating to just help me refine, what I did in the mornings. I was pretty much on the right track, but he added a few interesting things. One thing he actually said, which kind of makes sense, is the first thing you should do when you wake up is have a big glass of water, because you're probably dehydrated from your night's sleep. And most of the time we wake up and the first thing we might have might be a coffee, and that's going to further dehydrate us. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I found that was a good insight, simple takeaway. And John Maxwell's stuff is always good. I've only just started this one, so I can't really tell you too much what I've got out of it. I've only just started. But I would tell you a great book to read, and it's by a guy called Jeb Blunt, Blount, and it's called People Buy You. And that's buy as in B-U-Y. And in that book, he goes through a whole range of different ways to deeply connect with your prospect in a sales process. It's not about building rapport. In fact, he talks about rapport can actually be a negative, because the person can feel that you're manipulating the situation to have this fake rapport, whereas a connection is authentic and it's real. And he talks about ways in order to truly connect with people. And when you truly connect, then people buy from you. So he talks about building your likability with people. So that's another good one.
Yeah. Those are all, I have to put those on the reading list. And I'm going to put together a newsletter for the listeners of the successful failures, surprises, and the reading list of each month's guests. So if you want to sign up for that newsletter, go to trainerjim.net and click on the pop-up box. But enough about me. Let's get back to you, Justin. And how can people find out more about you, get in touch with you, contact you, all that good stuff?
Look, to be honest, if they just Google Justin Tamsett, there's plenty of different ways that they can contact me. We do have a Facebook group, which is for fitness business owners and managers and kind of team members that want to get better at what they do. We have that Facebook group is called Active Management Community. So people searched on Facebook for Active Management Community. That should come up. If not, just search for me and I can put you into that community. And that is a community that is free of sales pitches. So no one's pitching their products in there. It is a community where we share and we engage with each other with the sole goal of working out how we can do business better to get more people moving more often. Got it.
Okay. And all those links will be in the show notes. Go to trainerjim.net, click on the links. You can go also to afsfitness.com, and the links for the podcast and the episodes will be on the Association of Fitness Studios website as well, since we are the official podcast of the Association of Fitness Studios. So, Justin,
great bunch of people they are too.
Yes, they are. I've had nothing but pleasant exchanges with Josh and his team over there. So
Josh is a good man.
Yeah. And Justin, this has been great. Hopefully I'll get to see you around. My goal is to eventually meet all my guests face to face and sit down for a cup of coffee, or meet at the bar or something like that. But just chat it up.
You and I will do a workout together.
Okay, you got it. All right. So if I see you around, we'll meet in the weight room. All right,
I love
Justin,
it.
this has been great. Thanks a lot again for taking the time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No worries. I'd like to reserve the right to have you on again because there's a lot that we did not get to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever you want.
Oh, great. I'll reach out to you. I'm definitely going to take you up on that. Thanks a lot. And then Justin, what I'll do is when this is ready to air, I'll give you a heads up and I'll send you all the links and artwork and copy
Awesome.
so that you can push it out through your network, and I'll do the same. And if in the
Yep.
meantime, if you can send me some high resolution pictures of yourself, headshots preferably, that I can use for the artwork, that would be awesome.
Yep. I'll do that now.
Okay. All right. Great. All right. Well, thanks. What time is it over there right now?
4:45 in the morning.
Okay. All right. It's what time is it here? It's 4:45. So my day is ending. Yours is just starting. So have a great day, man.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Same here. Same here. Take care.
Awesome. See you, Jim.
All right. Bye.